All right. This is Marlon Weems, the Journeyman, and I publish the Journeyman newsletter on Substack. And I think we're going to do something a little bit different today. I have been threatening to do this, and my good friend Frederick Poag and I have been going back and forth for a minute talking about doing something where we just talk about cinema and movies and fun stuff, things that we like. So we're going to give this a try today and kind of see how it works. And if it's something that folks like, maybe we'll do this. We might make something of it. You just never know. So on the front end, like I said, I am going to do my best. And it's going to be tough today if you've been watching the news, but this is going to be an exercise in discipline on my part and probably Frederick's part too. Just to give you a little bit of background before I bring him in, Frederick, of course, is a writer on Substack. He calls himself a progressive independent, which I kind of like the sound of that, being progressive and independent. Not a bad thing. And he has. I know that he does some work with my friends over at Banner and Backbone, and we're just going to mix it up here for the next, the next 45 minutes to an hour, and talk about a little, some fun stuff, movies, cinema, maybe talk about, put our little spin on what all this stuff means. So hopefully you folks will enjoy it. And what I'm going to do, which is what I always do, is play the intro. I'll bring Frederick in on the other side, and we'll take it from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
All right, all right. What do you say about that, man? I told you.
Man, I gotta up my game. My goodness.
Shoot, man. My kid is, the investment is finally starting to pay off. It's been a long term, man. It's like, and if I had bought the long bond, it's finally coming in, man.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what kids are, though, right? I mean,
Well, yeah. I saw, okay, this is like as close to politics as I'm going to get. I saw a video, to your point, and I can't even think of the guy's name now. The guy that runs OpenAI, which is, ChatGPT, Sam Altman.
Sam Altman.
Altman,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody was interviewing him, and they were just talking about all of the, just the resources that AI uses. One of my daughter's friends was here the other day, and she walked by, and I had done something like made one of those little, the Wall Street Journal dot matrix kind of thing, like the pictures, with all the dots. And I had loaded my photograph in there and made one, like, that's as close to the journal as I'm going to get. And Gen Z will get you in line. She walked by and I was showing it to him. She said, yeah, it only took you a bathtub full of water to make that. Talking about all, and I just kind of went, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say, man, because she was right. Probably took a little more in the bathtub, just to be honest. But what I was going to say, this Altman guy was talking about, somebody asked him, all the money and the resources that they're spending. And he said, well, when you consider what it costs to raise a human being, it's really not that much. And I was like, dude, what's wrong with this guy? He started, you got to pay for college and you pay for this and that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to assert that my kid is a little more important than Chat GPT, but that's just me.
Yeah, it fascinates because among my circle of friends, I'm fast becoming the Luddite when it
Uh-oh.
comes to Chat GPT in a sense, because like, or just like the AI stuff, because
Hmm.
I have a master's in history, so I actually learned.
Wait a
I,
minute, man. You come in
yeah,
here as a ringer. We're going to talk about stuff, and you got that up your sleeve. I
well, I
demand
mean,
disclosure next time.
listen, I had to come. I had to come prepared. Like I'm
Well,
like,
I
man, I'm
think we
talking to
got
Marlon
both
Weems.
ends of the educational spectrum,
Oh man,
delineated here. History
you know
masters on one side, ladies and gentlemen, and
that.
college dropout. Well, actually, I was asked to leave. I didn't. I didn't just drop out. They said, "Sir, it's just not working out. Could you go home?"
I was technically asked to leave too because it took me off and on 16 years to get my bachelor's because I kept
Well,
going.
you know
I
what,
just kept
man, you
coming
got it
back.
though.
You know, there was like, well, I guess he's too stubborn to leave, and we want that federal
Just
money.
give him something so he'll
You know,
go. Give him a piece of paper, would you?
it, it was finally with my parents. Like I tried everything under the sun but history. It was accounting and engineering and all this stuff that was supposed to get me a job.
Hmm.
And finally, my mom got fed up with me just kind of dropping out and getting a job and doing something, dropping out and getting a job, doing something. And she said, just get a degree in something that just do history. You like history. And so I said,
Okay.
okay. So I went and got a degree in history and I ended up getting a master's in it. And that's kind of when I knew like I was probably not going to get a PhD in history because when I was in my bachelor's, and the way they refer to that is like really it's just, hey, isn't this interesting, isn't this cool? And then when you get in your master's program, it's like, okay, this is how you do it professionally. And I went from like being the top guy in the class in bachelor's to suddenly being in the middle, where
Okay.
you have these guys that are like, it's like, hey, have you thought of this? Is literally like the first week, and have you thought about your thesis? I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah, I've got mine half written. I'm like, half written? What are you talking about? I was
Shoot,
like, we just
man.
started. And
I was doing essays before class, like, literally sitting at my girlfriend's house, and we're all because I'm from the era, the Flintstone era, where you wrote shit with a pen and pencil.
yeah, and but to your point on the AI stuff, man, is like I was at the tail end of the card catalog and physically going to the stacks to
Hmm.
get the journals and look up the articles, how to read the table of contents to see if it was, something in your wheelhouse or whatever. They
Hmm.
came out with a search feature called JSTOR, where you
Yeah.
could do a keyword search.
Hmm.
And so like I was in college for like long enough to where I did the transition where I was
Okay.
kind of trained in both. And so people are like, well, AI will help you organize your thoughts. I'm like, I already know how to do that when I'm doing research. Like, and
Yeah, that's not what I use it for at all.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I have found that, um, I mean, this is at least my experience that if you kind of have an idea, you don't want to go into like Chat GPT, for example. And I think a lot of people do this. They use it like they think they're using Google.
Yeah.
They just search up some stuff. And you can do that, but a lot of times, at least the way I use it, you have to have a working knowledge of what it is you want to pursue. Because if you don't, you'll get um, not bad information, but incomplete information. Because you have to really kind of nudge it in the direction of what you're trying to. I use it for research, to find, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know, plane crashed. Well, did that really happen? I saw it on Instagram. I don't know. And you just
Oh
have to
God.
really
Yeah.
kind of give it some parameters, and it works pretty well if you use it just for that. But then on the other hand, there are people who do not use their powers for good, and so
No. Sam Altman being one of them, you know.
that dude scares the shit out of me. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just he just has that look on his face of somebody who, I don't know if he's an only child, but he just seems like he doesn't quite have the social graces. And he just has that look like a fucking mad scientist or something. I don't
Dude,
know.
that's like the tech
I
bros.
mean, that's just how he strikes me. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but not somebody I want to hang out with. So
No.
okay. So we said we wanted to talk about,
Sinners.
I guess, yeah, well, we can talk about Sinners, man. If you've seen my feed, you know I will
Oh yeah. Well, and that's
all
why I
day
wanted to
long.
that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because it's like I purposely for this, I've only seen Sinners one time. But the reason
Hmm.
I wanted to talk about it was it was a like I do screenwriting. I've worked in film, and
Oh,
you
I
kind
didn't
of
know
get
that.
yeah. I've got a production company with a partner, and
We need to talk about this memoir that I'm writing. No, I'm
let's do
serious.
it.
No, I'm really serious
Yeah, we can,
because
man.
I am. Well, this is taking a turn now, hasn't
Right?
it?
Yeah,
Well, no,
and
I'm almost done with it, and I'm doing, the whole, the, the presentation, all the stuff you give to literary agents and all that stuff. And somewhere along the way, somebody said to me that this you ought to be looking at a screenplay, and I'm like, really? So
yeah,
anyway, we'll say that for a different live stream.
let's
but
do
but
it,
go
man.
on. I mean, so
What
you
the thing
saw
that I've
Sinners once, huh?
I saw it one time, but like what was amazing about that to me was that I it's been a while since I've seen a film that sort of broke out of the formulaic mold that has been
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
Hollywood, like, because I think like it's a $90 million budgeted film. You've got
Hmm.
big stars, you've got a big director. Like one of the last kind of things, like Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, probably what old Hollywood used to be, in the sense of like, oh, it's the director driven films, it's the
Hmm.
big star. This is
Cecil B.
about as
DeMille and those kind of guys, right? Yeah.
right. Spielberg, all that, like names
Hmm.
that would get people to the theaters. Like you're kind of seeing the last of that. Plus, you have all these great actors like Delroy Lindo, Jack O'Connell, who plays Remick. I mean,
Hmm.
you've got like all the ingredients. And the thing that struck me about Sinners as I was watching it was the kind of chances they took in the storytelling. And one of the things that I loved was how they dealt with music as a
Hmm.
spiritual force. And like even the names of Smoke and Stack, I was like, that's a nice Howlin' Wolf reference, because he did a song called
I
Smoke.
know. Dude, I
Yeah,
just put that together just totally by accident. I
yeah.
actually ran into a on Instagram. I have got my feed trained where it just shows me movie shit all the time. And it was Howlin' Wolf talking about the blues,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was sort of they had a little, from what is it, Smokestack, the song,
Smokestack
Smokestack
Lightning.
Lightning, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I was like, up, Smoking Stack, duh. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I kind of like, I listened to Smokestack. I mean, I listened to Howlin' Wolf a while ago, and I remember when I watched the first season of The Reacher on Amazon, and they had a bunch of blues references in that, and one of the songs was Smokestack Lightning from Howlin' Wolf, and I was like, oh, and so I went back recent, like in a couple years ago, and just listened to a bunch of Howlin' Wolf for like a couple months. Like I was just
Okay.
anything I could get for Howlin' Wolf. Like I just grabbed it off of YouTube as I was working. And so when I saw Sinners, I was like, oh, okay. And then of course you have the Sammy character, who's absolutely a Robert Johnson character, right?
Hmm.
They took some of his like legendary,
Oh
where he
yeah.
goes to the crossroads,
Yep.
talk to the devil,
I mean,
become the
where they
greatest.
set the film in Clarksdale. I mean,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And and that's what I loved about it is because you have this Americana of music, and they put it absolutely where it came from, which was Southern Black culture.
Mhm.
And I love that about the film. And I even love and I promise, like, I'll get your, because I wanted to talk about this for you, like Remick, the character where they made him Irish,
Mhm.
which so he's on sort of this, like, in the South. He's like, they went in that direction of more of socioeconomically and class wise, he's much closer to black folks than, say, if they
Right,
made him
right,
some
right.
effete British lord, or some
Yeah.
some powerful rich vampire. It's like, no, like, and the fact that this guy, Remick, wants to, like, they made his motives much deeper, but he essentially wants to steal black culture,
He's
which is the
appropriated, yeah.
oh
He
yeah,
wanted to own it.
he wants to own it, like. And I was
Yeah.
sitting there going, like, wow. I'm gonna say this, but it's like, that's Elvis. Like, that's who that is. Like, absolutely. Like, it's the the archetype fits, right?
Yeah.
Because it made me think of Bo Diddley. It made me think of Chuck
Little
Berry.
Richard.
Right. Yeah. All those folks that came, and then it's like, there's Elvis,
Mhm.
and people are like, well, Elvis got kicked off the Ed Sullivan Show. I'm like, yeah, but so did Bo Diddley before him. Right. you know, it's like, because Ed Sullivan told Bo Diddley, don't play your song Bo Diddley, and he defied him and did it anyway. Right.
I did not
And
know this story.
yeah, no, so there's a more racier version of Bo Diddley, and
Imagine that.
Ed Sullivan didn't want him to play it. And
Okay.
I'll send you the clip of it on YouTube. And because when he's doing it, he looks really defiant. And it was because back then, it's like Ed Sullivan, they go live. That's it. There's no cutaways. There's no delay. It's a live broadcast. And
Right.
Bo Diddley launched into it. But the thing that gets remembered is, because a lot of people got banned and then would come back to the Ed Sullivan Show. But later it was Elvis when he did his little hip gyration. And
It's
that's the
amazing to
one that
think that that was what would get you thrown off the TV and back in the
yeah,
day.
it's like when he did his hip gyration and all the girls went nuts. And I think James Brown might have even got kicked off of it. But I can't remember if he did or not, or if he was like, I know he's gotten kicked off of some other shows because of
Mhm.
what the energy he brought. But
Yeah, James
yeah, Bo
Brown was something now.
Bo
I
Diddley
actually
was.
saw James Brown one time.
Did you really?
Yeah, yeah, I saw him.
Wow.
I mean, it was, it wasn't like the early. I was too. I mean, I can remember. I can remember the Chitlin circuit when you know
Wow.
what I'm talking about. I mean, I never
Yes.
like personally experienced it. I was, I was too young, but it would be like those, placards would be like on telephone poles, and and it would have the lineup. And man, in Little Rock, you used to be able to see James Brown for 99 cents in the summer. I'm not
Wow.
lying. You can see James Brown, all those dudes, and they would this it, and it kind of goes to just sort of a bigger cultural thing where the reason by the time I was of age that kind of it no longer existed because integration, civil rights, etc. And it was one of the, I won't say the downside, but like sort of unintended consequences of, um, just integration, which, I don't know, you could almost call it assimilation in a way, right? But
Yeah.
it sort of decimated, um, like the black business district in towns, like I mean, where I grew up in Little Rock, the South End had all the, the black accountants, attorneys, just professionals, right? Um, it never occurred to me when I was a kid going to get my first pair of glasses that it was because of segregation that I had to go to the guy I went to. We probably still would have gone to that guy, but but yeah, back I guess to the original thing. It was there was an area in Little Rock, and we just referred to it as 9th Street, right? And like a lot of places in America, they ran I-40 right, right through the middle of it, and so that did away with 9th Street, and all those businesses and hotels and all that kind of stuff just went away. But I digress. I got dangerously close to politics there, Frederick. You got to stop me next time, man.
No, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because
I'm
like
trying. I'm trying.
I have like a tail end of that growing up. Like, so my dad was, he's from Mississippi, and he had a scholarship. Like, he was all state basketball, all that, and he
Mhm.
had a scholarship to the Air Force Academy. And he got in an argument with his dad, and actual fist
Oh,
fights. And he said, "All
okay.
right." He was a senior in high school. I got a scholarship. I'm this and that. Dad, they got in a fist fight. Dad kicks him out of the house. So my dad got drunk and said, "All right, well, I'll show you. I'm gonna drop out of high school and I'm gonna join the Navy."
Mm.
So that's what he did. And so he got in trouble aboard ship, and he didn't like his commanding officer, and he was being insubordinate. And so the commanding officer said, "Oh, I'll show you. I'll put your Mississippi ass with all the black guys and who were cooks, right? Because you
Okay.
don't have a segregated Navy anymore, but you kind of still have a segregated arms, not in law,
Hmm.
but you have it in practice." And so he was a hurricane hunter, and they thought that's going to break my dad. And he was there for a month working as a cook. And this is a story he told me. And so the commanding officer came to get him, and he said, "No, I want to stay here." And so
Threw him
he
in
said,
the he
yeah, he
threw
said,
him in the briar patch,
yeah,
didn't he?
and he said, "I want to stay here." And so he said, that's when I learned that they're just folks like us. And,
Yeah.
and from that point on, so by the time I'm born in Prince George County, it was nothing for me to be at where I have Hispanic folks, black folks, Asian American folks, like federal employees of all stripes, all colors, everything at the house. That's what I grew up in,
Mm.
because people he worked with, he just invite them over, and they'd have a cookout or they do whatever. And one of the earliest memories I have is we were having a going away party when my dad was transferring to Hawaii. So we're going from Maryland to Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was about 6 years old, and my dad's on the phone, and he's ripping into Prince George County Sheriff. And so, yeah, and what had happened was our neighbor at the time called the police on us because we were our parents were a danger to the children.
Oh
That is what my
boy.
parents told me later, and they were taking down license plates of everybody that was at the party, all the cars outside,
Okay.
because we had black
Too
folks,
too much color in the room.
right? And so my dad was like, "I will rain down hellfire if any of my folks get arrested or harassed or anything."
That's
And he's
wild.
like, and yeah, and so it was weird because and then I go to public school in Hawaii in Kailua, where it was like me, two other white boys and one white girl in a class of like 50. And everybody else is non-white. So I like, I have a very different sort of lived experience, than your average folks that I would go to school later with in East Tennessee, when I went to a primarily public school, but it was mostly white,
Hmm.
which was just like a culture shock to me. But I remember kind of
That's
like that.
funny.
Yeah.
Go. That's kind of funny if you think about it.
I'm like, man, what, where,
Where are all the black folks?
right. Yeah. Where it's just like, I'm in a casual conversation and someone drops the N word, and I'm like, wait,
Okay.
what? And so it was surreal. Like I got a different experience kind of growing up, and it goes back to that experience my dad had, where his commanding officer got pissed at him, and so I'll fix you, and it did, just not the way he thought, you know. And it was
Unintended
funny because,
consequences, huh?
yeah, and I remember, like, it was back in the day when we'd have these that's why I love the music stuff in centers, because it brought me back to my childhood when we're having those cookouts, and we would have, it's like my dad would do that. They'd set the record player out on the porch with the speakers,
Hmm.
and you're hearing the OJs, and then that goes, and then there comes Hank Williams, right? Or like, Waylon Jennings right behind it for my
Yeah.
dad. And then, somebody brought like a Spanish record and that's up next. So it's like I'm getting all this like different flavor of culture growing up.
Hmm.
And that's what I thought America was. When I got thrown out in real America, I was like, oh damn. Like, well, I was like, wait a minute, all y'all didn't grow up like this? I thought everybody grew up like this.
Well, son, I hate to break it to you.
Right. Right. But honestly, that's what I loved about Sinners, is where they took music as almost a spiritual force, and they made it a point. Coogler made it a point to do that. Like when Sammy's singing and you see the visual of it.
Oh,
Right.
listen,
Like,
man, that is one of the,
yeah.
I mean, I have been, I guess probably as long as I've been alive, just a movie buff, but
Yeah.
really beyond just watching the movies, just kind of digging into what just the cultural significance and all that kind of stuff. Even, I mean, I watch a ton of gangster movies, and The Godfather. I mean, you see my shirt, so it's I mean, and it's kind of funny now that my kids are all grown, but watching The Godfather, especially The Godfather Part Two, that's like
Oh yeah.
mandatory for my kids, right? And it's not so much because of the like the shooting and the murder and all that, which certainly is something, but it's more of just I look at it almost as an analysis of human behavior.
Yeah.
You got these brothers and how they interact with each other, and everybody. I mean, so yeah, I mean that's the excuse I use anyway to let my kids watch R-rated movies. But that and Goodfellas, I love those.
Oh
So anyway, my only point of bringing that up is that I don't think up until I saw that movie, I would say The Godfather was probably my favorite movie, of all time. I mean, it's a short list, but still. Boy, this just sort of blows it out of the water because of things like what you just described. And
yeah.
I'm gonna have to dig it up, but there's a guy oh gosh, I can't remember. He used to be on what was then MSNBC, Torre, and
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
he
Totally.
had
Yeah.
he had the screenplay. I'll post it in my feed after we're done. I'll have to dig it up. But the way he reads through how Ryan Coogler wrote that scene,
Wow.
and as he's reading through it, it's flashing the different parts that he's talking about. And man, it's something. I mean, he literally like, where the roof kind of opens up, and I mean, and that's how he wrote it. And I read that they did that basically in one shot, like with I think like maybe single camera or something. I don't know, but they planned it out and it's totally choreographed, and it's just I can't think of another scene in a film that comes close. Just all total.
I watched in watching that, and normally I can kind of plot out like, oh, okay, well here's the first sort of
Mm-hmm.
turning point in Act One, and okay, we're moving into Act Two, and my brain just kind of does it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I like, and it's hard for me to settle in and kind of just digest it, but I
Right.
could do that with Sinners, and I just said, oh, okay, this is different. And what amazed me was just how they used music, and how, like, one of the most unsettling things is when Remick and the two white folks he's turned, when they come
Yeah.
up to Cornbread, and they're playing almost like a hymnal, like they're just like lost lambs that just are seeking shelter.
Yeah.
And
Just
what
want
they
to
are.
enjoy some good music.
Right. Yeah. Like we, the audience, know what they are. and it's
Mhm.
so unsettling. Like it's more terrifying and unsettling than if they'd have just threatened him. And then
Right.
as the people go outside and the sort of, Remy's sort of like cult or whatever you want to call it, his thralls grows, and they
Mhm.
start doing like more of the old time, like, because again, you're from Arkansas and I'm from the South. It feels like this parody of a revival, like a
Yeah.
religious revival.
Yep. Those
And
tent
it's
meetings.
yeah, and it's so like, but it's in the dark and it feels just menacing, even,
It's freaking
and you
scary, dude.
it
I mean,
is.
and
And
and and all of those people have kind of been converted over to,
yes,
and they're doing the river dance stuff, and I
yup,
thought it was interesting, like you said, that he would be Irish because of the Irish people have their history of, subjugation and, and all that, just that history. So it was like he could sort of identify with them, right?
well, even in America at that time, I mean, like the Klan, which we see in the movie,
Oh yeah.
you
Well,
know,
it's
and
basically if you weren't just like, regular white
Anglo-Saxon,
guy. Yeah.
and
Yeah, you
very
didn't, especially
specific,
in
like,
Mississippi, dude. Woo.
oh yeah,
Mm-mm.
very very specific. Like, again, I'll just kind of scoot into politics and scoot back out.
Okay, be quick.
That like right. Remember when Marjorie Taylor Greene got in trouble for that, where she said Anglo-Saxon heritage, and I think someone pulled her aside and went, "We don't use that term anymore. That's not the racism we go with."
Yeah.
And so she kind of dropped it. And
Mhm.
it's it again, because so on my mother's side, they were German Catholics that came to
Okay.
Chicago in 1896. They eventually settled in Golden, but they had to leave in the 1920s around the time this film is being made, because
Mhm.
the Klan ran out Catholics. Because people forget, like
I,
Colorado.
I listen, man. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
the
right.
Klan was like, they controlled Colorado politics in the 1920s, and not only did they hate black folks and Jewish people, they hated Catholics.
Catholics for
And
sure.
and if you were not Anglo-Saxon, so if you were German, if you were Celtic, like, you were not considered white at that time. They would get
Yep.
co-opted later. But that's why,
Italian. All yeah.
yeah, that's why I thought it was very interesting that because it kind of muddies the water a little bit with Remnick's motivation, because he lets it out. He says, I want to feel what it was like for the souls of my people that I can't hear anymore.
Hmm.
And it's because of his nature, he's cut off from that. And so he's trying to co-opt this, essentially the soul of black culture, which for Kugler is music, and he's
Mhm.
trying to take it for himself, you know, and he doesn't care about the damage he does. He doesn't care about the people he hurts or co-ops along the way, and that, I mean, it's I understand his motivations, but it's just sinister and evil, more so than just the hissing of fangs and the blood and,
Well,
all
that
that.
was what I thought was really well, there are a couple of things about this movie, in terms of the way that it's done.
Yeah.
And that, I can make a strong argument that this was a musical.
You know what? Yeah,
Fight me.
it
And
kind of
I
was,
mean,
man.
it's as much of a musical as Wicked. I mean, a lot of songs. And I remember, I mean, but so there's that. But I thought it was interesting, and somebody I follow on social media pointed this out, and I thought it was an interesting point. It's one of the few horror movies that if the vampires never showed up, it would still be an interesting story. You'd
Yeah.
still want to know, well, where did Smoking Stack get all that money from? Are those guys going to show up? Because the guys from Chicago that they've robbed are going to figure it out because they mention it
Yeah.
in the film. And there's just a lot of what's going to happen with oh the woman, the biracial woman that appeared white. I'm trying to remember her name. I'll tell you an interesting thing. That's Haley. I think her last name is Steinfeld.
Mhm.
And okay, so some people will remember this back in the early, sort of a couple of decades ago of ESPN, when you turn on in the morning, there would be like aerobic shows and shit like that. And do you remember Body by Jake?
Yeah,
It
I
was a
do
dude,
actually.
big
Yeah,
old dude lifting weights and showing you how
yeah,
to. That's like her uncle.
really.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I know
Wow.
because
Okay.
yeah, it's her. I'm pretty sure it's her uncle, but they're definitely related. It's not her dad. I think it's her uncle,
Yeah.
Jake Stein. Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, you know, you can't exactly call her a nepo baby, but I'm sure Jake knew some folks that could put her in the
Yeah.
right, you know,
It
which I don't
it's
particularly have a problem with folks using their connections. I wish I had some.
seriously. I mean, and that's a lot of what entertainment is. I mean, and it's any industry, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I mean, it's like you probably saw that in finance and in Wall Street. You had people that like it was a little easier for them to get into it, you
Hmm.
know. Um,
So
but I
you know
mean,
what? I'm looking at the folks in the chat, which by the way, we got over 100 people that just said, you know what? Can we just listen to something that's not politics?
nice,
No, Eric
nice.
Lulov mentions that Misty Copeland, who is she just retired. She's a ballerina, and in the performance in the Oscars, she actually was in that. They did a reenactment of that scene. But Eric is saying that she was supposed to be in the movie. And I had read that she had like right after she retired, she had double hip replacement surgery. And
Oh,
then I saw her in the Oscars, and I'm like, damn, okay, what? Before she had to get new hips, I mean, can you imagine? It's got to be
seriously,
what in just a few months, and she's back out there like that.
man, trooper.
Dude,
That's
I'd be
that's
on morphine if I had
right.
doing some of that stuff.
She might have been. She might have been
It's a possibility, I
like
guess.
John Belushi was in the Blues Brothers.
No, we're not going to compare Misty to John Belushi. John,
I know.
John.
That's my bad.
Okay.
Do you
I'm
know?
drawing
Do
a
you know?
line.
Do you know
No,
that story though? You know.
I just know John Belushi was wild.
Oh,
I
dude.
don't. I don't know this specific story. So yeah, let's hear it.
We'll do a little quick segue in the Blues Brothers. So it's in the John Landis called John Belushi America's House Guest because they were filming in the Chicago neighborhoods, right? Some of those scenes were
Okay.
shot in the actual neighborhoods. And John and Carrie Fisher were most of the time like it was either Carrie or it was John, and they were just whacked out. They were high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And John would wander off set and he would go to somebody's house and randomly knock on the door and say, "Hey, I'm hungry. Can I come in and get something to eat?" And he'd get a sandwich and he'd lay down on the couch and take a sleep because he's doing
Yeah,
heroin or morphine.
or
And
both.
yeah, both, right? And so they'd call for him and he's not in his trailer and they're like, "Okay, let's go find John." So they'd have to send the crew out and go knock on all the
Holy
doors.
moly!
"Hey, is John Belushi here?"
You
And
haven't seen John Belushi by any chance, have you?
right.
Oh yeah, he's
So
in there on the couch
they nicknamed
watching
him
TV.
America. John Landis called him America's house guest. And
Unbelievable.
so the scene they have in the big theater, like the big finale, John had during rehearsal he had broken his ankle, and so
Mm.
they have it all rented out. They have all these extras. They're like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" And so he goes to John Landis. He says, "All right, listen, I'm gonna go to my trailer. Give me about 30 minutes, and I'll be okay." And so when he does that somersault, he's
Right.
whacked out on whatever.
Mm.
And that's why he kind of is looking at the camera and he kind of seems listless at 1, 2, 1. Yeah, because he's freaking high. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I was
I mean,
referencing. It's just,
no,
yeah,
dude.
it's like,
Listen, it was
she's like
like
double
for
hip
a minute,
replacement.
everybody
Give me
was
30
dropping
minutes.
dead. All the entertainers were like, and him, John Candy, a few
Oh, God,
others
yeah. Just,
that were just hilarious. And
and well, it's crazy when you see like some of these performers, like Fred Astaire, when he did
Hmm.
Singing in the Rain, and he had like 103 fever, you know,
Wow.
and they were dumping all this cold water on him, you know, when he's so energetic, and literally after they call cut, he's like he collapses, you know,
Mm.
because he's so exhausted, you know, and so it like stories like that like always fascinate me, you know, and like the thing with Kugler and Sinners, getting back to that, was just, man, like it felt like an experimental film in a lot of ways, because it's just, he's like, you know what, I'm going to borrow from horror, you know what, I'm going to kind of do a little musical but not really, like, you know what, I'm going to kind of do this, you know what, I'm going to take the story here because that's where it needs to go. And you're just, it's like watching a master painter
Hmm.
being unleashed and kind of creating his own thing. Like, it was one of the few films that I've watched, I'm like, this is his opus. Like, this is
It is.
me.
He could stop right here. You
Yeah,
know,
he's
I
like,
thought it.
this is my style, vision, what I want to say. And so few directors nowadays,
Hmm.
like Tarantino is one of the last ones that still has like final cut. Like, you know, and to see Ryan Coogler get that to
And
where
the whole thing where it goes back to him as far as ownership in 25 years. See,
that's amazing.
I
Good for
think
him.
those things that you just, brought out, I think have something to do with why that, I wrote about this a couple of months ago. Well, right before the Oscars, just talking about how the success of the film in the beginning was just downplayed. Like the opening
Oh yeah.
weekend was a kick-ass opening weekend, and I think it was a Hollywood Reporter or maybe Variety, one of them. Which, as I point out, they're all owned by the same people. The same
Right.
guy, same company owns damn near all of Hollywood,
Yep.
as far as the media part goes. And they were saying, yeah, had a big opening weekend, but it's going to be tough for them to make money on this. And it's like, I think they did like, I don't know, 60 million the first couple of days, and what was it, 90 million to do the whole. I mean,
Yeah, they
that's
made their budget back opening weekend,
yeah,
which nowadays domestically is
it doesn't really
really
happen.
difficult.
Yeah.
No, like, I I think what scares them, besides the obvious, the black folks, like, oh my God, right?
Black
Because
booth.
right, where it's like, because there's this misconception that Hollywood's so liberal, and it's like,
Hmm.
no, maybe among like the crew and the actors and the talent, but not among the executives.
Hmm. It's
Not
kind of like the
it's
NFL, right? I mean,
right.
whole
Which
lot of
which you
black
posted,
players, not that many black owners.
right? You posted something about that where it's just like, when everyone's like, well, "What's the big
Yeah.
deal about coaches?" Is like, do you know the percentage breakdown
Have
of
you
how
looked
much?
at the NFL? I mean, really?
Right. And it's like, oh, there's, and again, as someone who lives in Colorado, and I'm not far from Boulder, and see what the vitriol and hatred Prime gets, Deion Sanders
Oh,
gets.
yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And but I mean, I think the scary part is like, you've got a film like this that you can't categorize, that is absolutely a director's vision, and they don't know
Hmm.
what to do with it, and it's like, uh-oh, right? And
Well,
then he
and it
set the
just
standard. He's like, I want, because the next guy, or the next time he does this, I don't want it in 25 years, I want it in 15, I want
hmm
it in 10, I want a bigger percentage, because without me you don't have this. And people will
I
go
think that's
see
really
these.
interesting.
Yeah.
And the part too, just to kind of take it a step further, it's Hollywood was doing its best to tell us why we shouldn't go see this film. I mean, they didn't
Yes.
say it was bad. That would have been, totally stupid, but they weren't giving it the props it should have gotten. And the audience said they are going to decide. It used to be where Hollywood would sort of crown you or not. And this is almost like the film got its accolades in spite of,
Yes.
right? because
Grudgingly.
yeah, people were like, well, and in fact, the piece that I was looking at about, and it was interesting, all by the same reporter, right? So, knocking down sinners and telling us what a great film Marty Supreme was, and the woman even called, what's his name, Timothy, what, Chalamet, the king of the Christmas box office. He's never had a number one film during Christmas. And wait, I think he had one. I think maybe
Right.
Marty Supreme might have been number one like one weekend or something. So, but it was like there are a whole lot of other people that have done better than and I don't blame him. I'm not saying he's not a good actor. It was just that they were really trying to frame it. And the the best, what is it, the film that won best picture, I just couldn't get behind. I don't know. And I have not bothered to watch it. I've just sort of one battle after another, right?
I'll
The
probably watch it
portrait.
at some point. I mean, it seems
Well, I'm
interesting.
sure I will whenever. I mean, it's on streaming now, so maybe I'll check it out. But and I again, it's probably not a bad movie, but this is a great movie, and it's of the films that I would put in the category of great. It actually is, to me, better than a lot of them. And I'm
Yeah.
not, I try to check myself on, oh, is it because it's about black folks and you're black? No, it's, to me, well, I think I try to be objective, and I go, I mean, I'll tell you what, you were talking earlier about just his opus, like all these different things he did that
Yeah.
nobody had done before. I got a little clip I'm going to play, and I tell you,
It
so
is
so
like it's man, like so I saw this, like I saw it in the theater the fourth week, and I'd planned on seeing it. Like I was like,
mm,
and so I have it. So I remember when I caught the previews when they first came out, and I
mhm,
rarely go to the theater anymore. But I saw this, and again, a little background about me is like, so I came up, like I was a teenager in the 90s. I got into Tarantino. I listened to
okay.
hip hop, all that. And so as I got
Wait a minute.
older,
Wait a minute. Let's take a beat. Did I hear you say listen to hip hop?
oh, I'm a hip hop head for 100%. Like,
Now, you know what, man? This is one of the reasons that I tell my kids this. You just can't look at people and think what's inside of them. Like the first time when I was in New York, my two oldest sons, which are, well, one will be 40 here in a couple of months, but um, the first time they came to New York, we were getting ready to get on the subway, and me and Shannon pulled them over to the side and said, "Okay, so you can't stare at people, and everybody that you hear, speaking a different language, isn't speaking Spanish, because they're from Arkansas, and
right,
they've
yeah.
only ever seen black people and white people, and we took them to like the swimming pool one day, and my son looks at me and goes, 'Where are all the white people?'" Because everybody was Latino in the neighborhood that we were in, or something. And so when I look at you, if I just had a picture of you,
Yep.
I would not be here in Colorado or seeing it. I would be seeing like Northwest Arkansas, Ozarks, but you just don't
Yep.
know, right? And so I think that's a cool thing, though.
Man, I like it's funny because my dad, was like he was like he raised me on, Waylon Jennings and all this
Hmm.
other country stuff. And then here I am listening to like a Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, KRS
Oh
One,
shit. Okay.
like, and I got my mom, like, because the X hats were the big thing
Oh
back
yeah.
then,
Oh yeah.
and
The
so I
Malcolm
got her to
X.
buy
Oh,
me Malcolm X's
wait a
autobiography.
minute. You had a Malcolm X hat
I did. I
or
had an X
cap,
hat, and
right?
yep, I had, and because I read Malcolm X's autobiography written by X
Okay.
Haley, and then
Woo. All right.
and then Spike Lee's movie came out later, right?
Okay.
And it was funny because my mom, like, from an early age, I loved history, and I think this is how I got radicalized on accident. So she picked up a book like a a paperback discount. It was a big thick one. And
Mhm.
my mom just kind of didn't really say, "Oh, is this age appropriate, bro?" She goes, "Oh, A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Okay, here you go, son." So I'm in seventh grade reading Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, going just shocked. And then
Man.
I start listening to Public Enemy. I go, "That's what they're talking about. Oh my god, that's what
Oh,
KRS One's
man.
talking about." And I'm starting to make these
So
connections.
what were your parent how was their reaction to this
So
development?
it was funny because like I remember when the Berlin Wall came down. I was in history class. We were talking about it, and I started talking about Howard Zinn, and my teacher called me a communist. Right.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So they sent a note home and said, "Your son is having some troubling views
Wait,
on like
wait,
and
troubling views.
troubling views." Right. So I got a note, and my mom brings it up at the table. Right. And and so here's my dad. He's sitting there, and he says, "What do they talk about? What they did to the Indians? They didn't talk about that, did they?" It's fucking. He goes on this rant, where he damn near says, like quoting Gil Scott Heron talking about Whitey, right?
Uh-oh.
And I mean, I've got
Fred, I gotta tell you, man, I didn't realize I was bringing a closet radical onto the show.
oh, dude, I've got pictures of my dad
Oh my goodness.
and my mom. What
I mean, don't
like
get me wrong, you're in good company, but
yeah.
I thought we
No,
was
I
gonna
got
talk about
pictures
some
of them in the
movies, man.
70s, lily white, where my dad's got the long hair and the sideburns, wearing a dashiki, like that a friend of his gave
Okay,
to him.
man.
I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
Oh
You
my
know,
goodness.
it
This
was
is funny.
it like my first
I'm trying to imagine, first of all, I'm trying to imagine your dad. And then
he
I'm trying to imagine your dad in a dashiki.
my dad. So it's funny because my dad, because everybody in the South always says, "Well, I'm this and this and Cherokee," right? They all say they're
Oh yeah.
Cherokee.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
my dad, like from his brothers, like his brothers look like me. My dad had that sort of Native American skin complexion, and his hair was
Mhm.
dark black, right?
Mhm.
And couldn't grow facial, like really couldn't grow facial hair, couldn't
Yeah.
really grow like nothing close to this, like not even, like
Mhm.
I'm way more my mom's stock. My dad was slender, but he was the quote unquote runt of the family. At his brothers, he was 6'2", right? So I got his
Wow.
height. My uncle John was 6'6", I'm 6'5", and
Woo.
so like my dad, like he pretty much got radicalized from that incident in the Navy,
Oh, oh
and
yeah.
and so like he would just so there'd be times that he would just kind of go on these rants against the church, or especially Southern Baptists, or he'd go on a rant against you know like and what's interesting is, so my dad got blackballed in the government because he testified before Congress uh, right after I was born about pay disparity and hours based on discrimination, right?
Mm.
And so, and I'll have to send you an article about it. I wrote this thing, it was called Folks Like Us, and it was like, and I swear it's like right out of this freaking, you know, like it reads like a damn movie script, because it was like, so he gets blackballed for basically doing that, and they say, okay, you got two
Mhm.
choices: you can get out of the weather service, or you can go run the station in Point Barrow, Alaska, take your wife and your newborn son up there.
Oh wow.
And so he goes to my mom and says, I don't know what I'm gonna do. She's like, well, we're going to Point Barrow. So we go to Point Barrow. It's the worst station in the weather service. It's critically understaffed, and there was a guy, uh, black guy named Andy Brewington. Both them, they're passed on now, but like, so Andy was living with an Inuit woman, and they got into a verbal altercation. Cops show up. They of course arrest him. They throw him in jail. This is in
Mhm.
Anchorage,
Okay.
and the regional director at the time didn't like him. As my dad referred to him, he's like, "Oh, he's one of those sheet wearing MFers, right?" Right.
Okay.
So the, somebody who owed Andy a favor liked him. He said, "Hey, regional director wants to get rid of this guy, but you got a spot open. He says, I got more than a spot open. He says, you want him? Come." He's like, you can take him. He said, okay. So he went. My dad flew down to Anchorage and literally met him through county bars, right? And he's talking to him. He says, did you lay a hand on the woman? He said, no, we just got into it. We both drinking. We just yelling at each other. He says, okay. He says, they're going to kick you out, right? He says, yeah. You want to come to Point Barrow and maybe save your career? Can you work for a crazy ass redneck? And he says, sure. Okay. So he went and talked to the DA. Yeah, it was like he said. And he said, okay. He says, is he going to drop charges on him? He says, yeah. So he told the regional director, I want him. And he says, well, I'm going to kick him out. He says, no, you're not. Because if you do, I'm going to raise a fuss. So I want him, And so they became lifelong friends. And like, that's, they would come to the house and, I remember Andy and his two boys, Andrew and Adrian, we pretty much they're like 4 and 6 years older than me. And so, they'd come a few times a year, wherever we were. And my dad basically, they both helped each other. They, like the way they say it is, we both saved each other's career because I was blackballed and they were trying to blackball him. So we came together and basically told everybody to go to hell. And we just batting the hatches.
They never expect that.
Yeah. And it was an interesting thing growing up because it's like, it was nothing for me to have like all kinds of different folks just at the house, wherever we were, they just come visit. And when my dad passed, he had 150 people that were non-family show up to his funeral.
Wow.
From all over the U.S., that people he'd helped, during his federal career. That just, we had more friends than family at the funeral,
That's something.
Yeah. So I don't know how I got on that.
No, listen, man, that's what I wanted to do, was just kind of, chew the fat, as they say down in Arkansas, we just burned through an hour that quick. So, I guess we're going to have to do this again so we can somehow squeeze Game of Thrones into the conversation.
Oh, we got to talk about The Godfather. We got to have one of those too. Cause I love especially part 1 and 2. Like,
well, yeah, that is, like I said, that has been, one of my favorites. To the point that I've got the box set, which, I don't even have anything to play, a Blu-ray CD on.
I have I still have the old VHS tapes of The Godfather, and wow. I bought it in multiple formats. The Godfather series was the first movie that I was like, oh, this is smart. Like, okay, it was one of the first movies I actually sat down and studied from a character standpoint. I was like, man, like the scene when Sonny gets assassinated.
Oh yeah.
And it's so brutal. And it's, I'm pretty sure I heard this from an interview, but it's like the reason they did that is it shows just how terrified they were of Sonny. Because if they missed, he would come after him with a vengeance, And so they were like he did his brother-in-law. We're not going to miss this guy. We are not going to screw this up. And even still, with all those bullets, he still gets out of the car.
Yeah, that's especially for the the level of special effects that they had at the time. It's pretty gruesome. Now, see, on the other hand, I saw The Godfather Part 2 in the movie theater.
Wow.
Took a girl. I should say I saw the first part of it because she just wasn't feeling it. I've seen The Godfather. Now I'm into and I guess I was in high school still. And it's a long movie, and so
Yeah.
there's that intermission in the movie theater, that little break, and she was like, I'm gonna call my mom to come get me. Dude, I watched the second half by
I was about
myself.
to say,
I was like, see ya. See you at class tomorrow. Dude, I was like, all right, when she gets here, tell her I said hi.
tell her I had you where I said I would.
Yeah,
I
was like, relationship didn't last too much longer.
It happens.
So yeah, hey, the sacrifices we make, man.
That The Godfather was like, it was one of my first kind of grown up experiences I had with a film. Where it went from just being, wow, isn't this cool, man? Isn't this, oh, this is dope? Where it was like, oh, this is something serious that, like kind of like where you instead of just shoveling your face with a cheeseburger or whatever, is like it's fine dining where you sit down and you actually appreciate the atmosphere and the presentation and
well, that's why I made, I've got 3 sons, 2 from first marriage, and then I've got one that's in college and my daughter. It's not when I get them to watch movies like this, they also have to put up with my narration. But there are just certain parts that you just want to freeze it and say, okay, do you understand why X, whatever it is? And I think a lot of times people watch movies and they don't take that minute to, okay, why did he say that? Why did that? What is the significance of whatever it might be? And the Godfather, and honestly, gangster movies are just filled with that kind of underlying stuff. And
oh yeah,
there's a gangster movie I'm leaving out, and I'd be remiss because it's got one of the best, a very good scene. Miller's Crossing. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
So the Danny
I thought you were
boy,
going to say A Bronx Tale.
man, the Danny boy scene where guys are getting ready to get in the bed and he slides into those slippers, and then he kind of hears something and he's like, hang on a second. And I won't spoil it. I'm going to post all of this, as much of it as I can recall. Just that'll give me something to do this afternoon that'll keep me from getting pissed off.
Yeah, right. Because we're all waiting on that. Yeah,
So, okay. So why don't we wrap it up here? Here's what I would say, folks. If you've enjoyed this, give us some likes. If not already, please follow my man, Frederick Poag. And I was trying to think of his newsletter, and all I had to do was just read it right there. Missives from a Middle-Aged Man.
Yep.
I can't write that anymore.
I went crazy with the alliteration when I first did it. Because I said, this is going to be so obnoxious, ain't nobody going to read it.
Shoot, man, you never know. I mean,
right?
Well, look at mine, The Journeyman. I've had people say, okay, so what's that all about? And, I'll say that story for another day. Yeah. Well, everybody,
we got to do this again, man. We got to do this again.
Yeah, doggone it. I will leave with this. We got to talk about Game of Thrones, because I actually ran into like something that I had not noticed until I started rewatching Peaky Blinders, because there's a movie out now, and it's all on Netflix. I haven't seen it, and I watched Peaky Blinders, years ago, whenever it first came out, and I think maybe the last season I hadn't even watched it, and I am now on, I think, maybe season 3, and it's like, is there anybody in this film that wasn't in this show that wasn't on Game of Thrones? There's so many freaking people. I mean, I counted, like 8 or 9 people. And some of them, when I would have watched it earlier, I wouldn't have noticed, because Game of Thrones was kind of going on at the same time. But they're like, I bet maybe a dozen people in Peaky Blinders that are in Game of Thrones. So
There's some like, man, it's amazing. Like just the people that worked on kind of both those shows back then, and
I just it's because they don't have that many good actors, man. They have to just keep using these guys over and over. No, but seriously, man, it just knocked me out. I almost wrote something about it, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to start doing listicles and shit like that. But it's just kind of one of those things that I don't know, at a party, kind of good to know.
I will say, like, The Godfather, sort of, and studying that and really, digesting it and working through that gave me sort of the tools to really appreciate shows like The Wire. I
Oh
never
man,
would have got The Wire without The
you know
Godfather.
what? I did not watch The Wire when it, like when it was, when it was new.
I didn't
Or
either.
when it was,
I watched it
I
when
watched
the
it.
DVD thing took off, right?
I watched
Years
it
later.
a couple of years ago, just because so many people had told me how good it was. And if you haven't watched The Wire, again, it's another one of those, so many quotes, so many good actors came out of that show. And at the time, as I understand it, most of those actors were unknown or
Yep.
barely known at the time. And you just
I-
think of all the folks that came out of it. Again, a guy from Game of Thrones, Littlefinger, is in it.
Yep. I will
Talking
say this
like
for
talking like
anybody
he's from freaking Baltimore.
Yep. I will say this for anybody that hasn't watched it. You need to give it at least 4 or 5 episodes. It is a very
Oh,
slow
yeah.
burn.
Well, yeah, but it is just one of the best television dramas, I would say, that you
Oh, yeah.
are ever going to watch, because it's real. I mean, and I think because at the time those people were relatively unknown, Idris Elba is again, I actually posted this a couple of days ago, that it's a clip from The Breakfast Club, the radio show, and some of the guys from The Wire are on there, 2 or 3 of them, and they're talking about how they did not know Idris Elba was like not American until they went to like a Mike Tyson fight, and he got into it with like his baby mama over the phone, and they're like, dude, why are you talking like that? They had no idea this guy was from the UK. And they're like, why is he talking like that, man? What's going on? Where are you from?
I've done some, I've had some conversations on another project with the guy who played Michael when he was a kid, Tristan Mack, right?
Okay.
And he told me a story, like, so when the episode came out and it dropped, that where his character kills Snoop, right?
Okay, right.
And so the actress, because she's from, a lot of those folks that played those, like Slim
We're
Charles,
from Baltimore and stuff.
they're from
right?
Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
She said, hey, yo, Trist, man, because Tristan, his family and folks, they're from Richmond, and so he's in that area, right? She said, yo, you can't you can't come to Baltimore for a little while and hang out. He's like, why? And people were telling her, Snoop, she's like, that's messed up what Michael did to you, man. If we see him, we're gonna get him.
Oh no.
And they're telling her, who's alive,
right,
about what
this is like, he
character
didn't
in the
really
show.
kill me. It was a TV show.
Right. But they got so into
I
it.
can,
It was like,
but I can see that, man, because
Yeah.
it was just so, it was so real. And every season they came at it from a different sort of angle of just the criminal, enterprise. Like the whole town was just, freaking,
the guy who played Bugs,
just a bunch of criminals.
the guy who played Bugs,
yeah.
Like, I'm trying to remember his name, but like he tells a story. He was on set, right? And they filmed in Baltimore.
Right.
And so he's kind of stepped away. He's trying to get into character, and it's a scene where Bubbles is having a really tough time. And he said, so he's trying to sum it up, like he's really just like, so he's going through his warm-ups, and he's getting into that headspace. Somebody approached him and put like a vial in his hand and said, hey brother, you need this more than me.
Well, okay,
like,
so
what?
he was ready.
He's like, that's how I knew. I was like, okay. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, you look at that show, and I mean, it's like, and then you get stuff with Vince Gilligan and with, Better Call Saul,
Mm-hmm.
and Breaking Bad, which I mean is some of the
Right.
best character studies. Like The Wire to me is the best ensemble cast, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing. Um, and then you look at Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, like
I've seen
just
them both. Again, I don't know what my deal is, but a lot of shows. First of all, I don't watch a ton of like just TV, like network TV stuff. But Better Call Saul, it was just, man. I mean, again, watched it with my kids. I just figured,
so good.
when you get out in the real world, and see a shyster, it won't be the first time like some, con man has, you'll know what's coming, right? But anyway, man, my headphones are beeping. I think that means they're about to quit on me. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Like, hey, you said this was going to be a 1 hour show.
I know, right? Yeah, we got to do this again, man.
Okay, so yeah, definitely we're going to do it again, folks. Go find my man on Substack, and while you're at it, follow the Journeyman. And you know what? Doing this kind of thing, we're having a whole lot of fun, but we don't get paid for doing this. So if if you can find it in your get some gas first. But get some, make sure you've got gas. I'm not trying to get into anybody's gas money, but if you got
fill
a
up
little
a
bit
container
extra,
too before
yeah,
it goes up.
if you can,
Get
if
the
you
milk
can
jugs.
help us out by becoming a paid subscriber, we would certainly appreciate the support, so we can continue doing this kind of thing. And of course, being out here fighting a good fight as far as what's happening in the country goes. But I just thought this would be a good opportunity to take a break and just kind of, we're multifaceted people, and politics is not all we talk about. And hopefully we can get back to the, where things are like that again, where we don't have to worry about, what the president did while we're over here doing this, So
Nice.
on that note, let's see, what's my next thing? I guess a show with no name. I do that on Thursdays with my good friend Arturo Dominguez. And then tomorrow at noon, I am doing the new show that we just started last week called Reality Check. And that is me and Egberto Willis. So, put those two on your schedule. Fred, have you got anything going that we need to know about?
I usually do a Friday show with Larissa Reinhart where we talk about like the week and just kind of, get a little raucous. And then,
Raucous is
yeah,
good.
usually I try to jump in where I can,
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Well, I mean,
trying to get
no, go on, man. Go on.
No, I'm trying to get something a little more steady, but it's like I got burned out on politics, man. But that's why I was like, when you were like, man, I want to talk about Game of Thrones and Sinners, I said, yes, please, let's do that. I'm like, I want to talk about something else.
All right. Well, okay, folks, I hope you got all that down. And in the meantime, I will see you on the other side. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.